What's going on, everyone? Vampyr Gaming here, and I'm sure you're wondering which leaders you should run for the One Piece pre-release for Set 8 Two Legends. And in today's video, we're going to talk about just that. We'll also be covering the deck that I ended up building, how I ended up winning. I will be completely transparent. I did only have to play 3 rounds for me to get the winner card, so I did only have to play 3 rounds. But I'll go behind my deck building choices, talk about the circumstances surrounding that. We'll talk about the leaders and in what instances I believe you should be choosing these, because I think it's very fluid depending on the situation, and we'll dive into that. And then we'll also kind of just talk about the cards and what you should be putting in your lists. So first up, we have Jewelry Bonney. Once per turn, Dawn X1, rest up to one of your opponent's leaders or characters. So you can rest Eustass and prevent the 12-12 and force them to do that with Eustass if they're going to use their ability first. You can also rest blockers if you're going for game the next turn. And you can, it's any character, so you can rest something and then plan to swing into it, especially in a sealed format. It's really good, and it forces them to play certain ways. You do have to have one Dawn up, which is a slight problem depending on your curves. This set is fairly balanced in terms of what you got. My deck was very balanced between even or odd curves, but I don't think I had anything Bonney worthy. We'll talk about Bonney in a moment. But also Yamato. I know last set Yamato was not on the menu at all. Everybody had blockers. Everybody had 2Ks. Fresh back, the biggest complaint. People had 3 2Ks. People had 4 2Ks. One guy told me he had 1 2K. With that, Yamato becomes incredibly powerful, especially when it's not all Yamato, like we had in OP06, where literally everybody was playing Yamato mirrors, and then it's like, did you see a blocker? Did you see counter? No, I win. And just very much just the grossest mirror match in all of history. So a lot of people aren't keen on playing Yamato, and we actually have a decent sample size for pack pulling ratios now to get an idea of what we're going to see, which is the biggest part on determining if you should run this leader. I played this leader in the final round, and a Biscuit Warrior was putting in the most work. This Biscuit Warrior was working double overtime. Only reason I won was a Biscuit Warrior. I played a Doctor earlier. I saw 2 blockers in the game, which was huge. I kept my hand because they had a blocker. Played Doctor, turn 2, and then they go and do the chess combo and KO it. And I was like, oh, I might be cooked. But we came through. We came through. It was literally by skin. It was an insane game. And then we've got Eustass Kid, activate main. You know, everybody knows what this does. You know, it's that time. Defrost your kid leader. But let's go ahead and we're going to actually take a look at my deck and kind of talk about it. So I went ahead and ran Eustass Kid, and I won't talk too much about the fundamentals, but if you're looking for something for just evergreen great advice for any pre-release to elevate your game, I highly recommend this video by, I think it's Kai, but it's Kai from X. I'm sure if you've heard of me, you've heard of this man. But definitely go check him out. He's now on YouTube. It's a great video. It should be up in the little eye thing here. I'll try to make sure to have it like right here. But yeah, so this is the list. I did not pull a single super rare. No alts, nothing. I saw, by definition, no boss monsters. I was out here fighting for my life. Okay? I had 5 2Ks, and I actually had 7 blockers, and I typically every game only saw 1 blocker. So it's not like other sets where like I've had 10 blockers, 11 blockers in a deck. I had 7, which was very high. One of these doctors were from my pre-release pack, and I screamed with excitement because I had nothing. Jozu was a huge card. Both Jozu and Wapol, absolute powerhouses. And again, you can kind of see I split it up here by the evens, so you can see I've got some 3 plays, and then I've got the 4 plays, the 6 curve plays. This card shouldn't be down there, but for space reasons. I played the Marco. Marco's really nice just because you play it early and they don't want to remove it till later. But it's also like if you want to use your leader ability but also need to establish a threat, you can use it to do like 6, 6, or 8, and then 8, and then play this body. I even played Albert. I can't use his effect. I just needed a body. When I was done building, I had like 30 cards and I had to find filler. These events right here, the events, there is the Blackbeard event, and because I did have like an okay amount of 6s, I considered playing it. because I was like, if I see it and it hits, I probably win. But if not, I probably lose. So I considered it because that's how little room I had. But these two events, this one's essentially a 5K event because you go up 4, and it also minuses their leader by 1, which is also relevant if they're playing Eustass. And this one just gives you 2, and then you can do some live shenanigans if you want. But then we also have the bird combo. We'll talk about these, but yeah, I had 5 2Ks. I pretty much saw 1 2K per game. Again, poking 6s is incredibly strong this set. But so let's talk about it. So Yamato, I think Yamato is one of those leaders. If you see a lot of low costs, this leader can be very good because then like the 1 drops, 2 drops, you can give value to them in swing, and then they act as pseudo blockers. It also gives you an opportunity. Your opponent has to know how to play against you. So this leader almost skill checks. So if you're a less seasoned player or a newer player, I would definitely recommend Yamato just because Yamato is very powerful. Evergreen effect, there's nothing you can do about it. 5 life leaders, you know, you want to get them to 2. You want to get them to 2 because then you can do any kind of, if you have any kind of boss monster, you drop it like Smoothie, then you can do a all-in attack, boom, boom, force them to have a blocker if they don't have it or if they wasted it. They're cooked. Yamato, like, again, you kind of want some kind of boss monster because then you can, again, you get the reused Dawn too, so you can establish a blocker. Like, I think if you have a mid-range deck, like even the 6/8s, all you need. You get a lot of 6/8s. I think Yamato makes sense. And again, if you're on the lower end of the skill, I think this helps make that up. So I think those are the instances you should play Yamato. Eustass Captain Kid, I think if you have a terrible deck, like I did, Eustass Captain Kid is the leader to go to. This is my opinion, but I'm a firm believer. Whenever I open mid, I always bust out Captain Kid. Mid equals Kid. Just remember that. But Eustass is a very strong leader. He has an evergreen effect. You don't actually need to play bodies if they don't have a blocker. You just go boom, 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 boom. Then when they go a body at you, you're like boom at the body, boom at your face. Like you can just clear. You can play control. You can play aggressive. Eustass gives you a lot of different options. I will argue that there is a skill curve for Eustass. Is he pretty straightforward if you just want to go face? Absolutely. But making sure you don't lose the game, there is absolutely skill there, especially in the mirror. The mirror will 100% skill check you, but a lot of people are playing Bonney. A lot of people are playing Yamato. I saw like a lot of talk about it, so there's a decent variety. I played a Katakuri. People are playing Katakuri because there is a 6-cost event that's actually insane that KOs 2 6-costs. I was like, oh, that's phenomenal. So there are some interesting things. There are some interesting lines. But again, I think the big 3, Yamato, Kid, and Bonney. But yeah, if you open a poor deck, I think Eustass makes sense. If you see cards that are more on the defensive side, I still think you can play Kid because then you can just hide behind blockers, hide behind events, and just smash face. Smash face events, smash face events, smash face block, smash face. Like, because he's essentially like a rusher that you pay 3 for and whatever Dawn you committed. And of course, there's Bonney. I think if you open really well, Bonney is an absolute powerhouse. I think, again, like this is one of those cards. If you're also really skilled with Bonney, I think it goes a long way. You got to know when to rest like Eustass. You need to know when to rest the threats. You got to understand what your opponent is signaling. A lot of different things there. Like somebody would rest, my Marco, which had 6. And then I'm like, well, now I can go like 8/8. It's tempting. And then all you have to do is Eustass, all they have to do is put you at 1, and the moment you don't have a blocker, it's Ogre. So it's something to keep eyes on. But yeah, I think Bonney, if you see like top end, if you see super rares, if you see good boss monsters, if you see Kaido Lin, and you can slow the game down to the point where you can play a Kaido Lin to just win, absolutely phenomenal. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the set. Alright, so first we're going to look at the blockers. So as you can see, there's actually only 7 total blockers in this set. So again, just doubling down on the fact of Yamato is really good. I saw 2 Yomules, 3 Doctors. I didn't even see a Yomule in a single game, but he's a very strong one. Also, Brule, you can use it to ramp to play a boss monster on curve early, potentially. So this can be really strong if used correct. And then also, Scratch a Poo does a -1, and there are some cards that actually partner very well with this. So there's a lot of combos there. And then S-Shark, I'll just mention him because he's here. This card is absolutely phenomenal. It's a finisher because they can't block, but we'll go ahead and just take a look at the overall thing. Kuramarimio is actually, this is the card that got dropped on me. This combo is definitely worth playing if you have the room, because if you resolve this, it applies a ton of pressure, and if they played an early blocker, you can punish them. The only decks I would play an early blocker against is Eustass, just because once you start swinging your characters, you want to be able to play on curve, but you also want to be able to prevent them from trying to clear your body effectively, because then they'll just apply a bunch of pressure with double swings to clear your board. So you want to have those blockers established early to be able to do that. But then again, you know, you have Chess, Kuramiro, and then I had this dropped on me. It almost cost me my game. I was able to come back from it, thankfully, but it does put a lot of work on it. And then you can play this card. And if for whatever reason you have those, he's a 8K. So if you hit these on your 3 curve, then you drop this on 5, you're big ahead. So a lot of opportunity there. And then you can, if you see this for whatever reason, there are the animals, and you can play the animal engine. This one lets you play an animal type from the top 5 cards of your deck, so you can play it very efficiently. But it does come in rested, but it lets you obtain board. Dalton, this card's a rusher, so you want to play this. It's one of the better rares. You do have to take a life, so this can be more of a finisher, or if you're playing Bonney and you get that slow-paced game, it's almost like your Hody. So you can use that, gain resources, also apply a pressure. The guy was holding this on me for Yamato. And then you want to play your vanillas, 3/5s. You want to play those. I even think it's worth playing the 1/3s, just because especially if you're playing Eustass, because you can go, if you're going second, or if you're going first, you can go play that, then go 5/6, and so they have to counter 5. If they don't, then you get to hit them with 6, and it's going to cost them like 2 1Ks, because nobody has 2Ks. We, of course, 2Ks, Hiking Bear, any 6/8 you want to play. If you go second, you hit a 6/8, you're big up. This card, you don't get any value, but Robson, this card's a rusher. You attach 2 Dawn, and so he's essentially, for 3 Dawn, for 6, he's a 6/7 rusher is one way to look at him, or he's a 5/6 rusher. This card can be really great for finishing games. You definitely want to play these. If you can play it on curve, on 5, and just apply a little bit more pressure, it can mean a lot, especially if they didn't establish any meaningful threats. Now, Wapple is my MVP. This card carried me through my Bonney matchup, because you attach 1, you go -1, then he gains plus, or you go -2, and he gains 2, so he goes 9 at the dome, and you also can lower and poke at to eat their resources. So I was always swinging first with him, clearing their big bodies, and he helped keep threats away from me, and really just came through. I don't recommend playing any searchers, but I did see some people playing them. Use that at your discretion. But the Doctor, he's a 2K. This is also, I don't think this is the actual translation. It's also a very questionable image, but you gain +4 and you give a character -1. I did talk about this. This card also, it does give you power during the turn, and it also minuses one of your opponent's characters. So there's an argument to play that. This one, I probably just wouldn't play, just because it's characters, but you can do it during main, but it is very expensive. So do with that what you will. I don't think it's worth playing, just because you want bodies and things like that. And then you just don't want to play the stage. Also, I was playing Inarashi. This card only works if you have a Mink, but I needed a 5/6. So he's a body that's worth playing. Carrot is a goat. If you see Carrot and you play Carrot on when they have like a 7, you probably just win, because then you're going to keep that 7 frozen forever. Or you're going to clear that 7 with your Eustass, and then you're going to swing Carrot and freeze something else and just keep them at bay. Carrot is an absolute powerhouse if you see it. I did play Tristan at 1. Most of these require a Mink character, or they're just not huge value. There's not a lot of 3s, and so for a 3/4 going on to like your X Dawn turn, you want to be establishing threats on curve. Peckham's is okay. Same with Nekomamushi. Nekomamushi lets you get potentially rush if they've tapped 7 Dawn. If they have attached to their leader and swung, you know you can't, but any kind of rush card can be really good if you can just do it to apply pressure. Pedro is actually really good because you can block with him to KO something if you time it right. So he's pretty sweet, especially because a lot of these cards are 6 costs or less. So Pedro, and he's a blocker. So I mean, you just auto add him. You can get him as an alt too, so double the odds. You want to play Milky because she's a 2K. Somebody played Wanda. I don't know if that's the move. A 2/4, there is the argument for it, but I wouldn't. Electric Luna, absolutely gas. If you see this and you play this at the right time, you probably just win. These, I wouldn't play any of those. Same with like the Whitebeard package. I opted for not most of this. I think there's the opportunity for Weevil. He's a 3/4, or he's a 4/5, which it makes sense. You also, of course, want to play King Dew. I did play Thatch. I'm pretty sure if he would be KO'd, you get to add him to, you get the trash and draw cards, so you get that benefit of card advantage. So I was operating on the assumption if he's KO'd, I think he's worth it for that. This, of course, you want to play this just because it's a boss monster, especially, again, if you're Bonney and you kept a lot of pressure off of you and you're in a healthy spot. You can play this. It doesn't affect the leader, so they'll probably just go leader, but it gives you a 12. Jozu, absolute MVP. You get the bounce ones, so I like to play like a 1 cost if I have one and then bounce it, because otherwise you're usually bouncing something of value. This card's also pretty good. Pretty good. If you can, for some reason, use it, or like with Jozu, but yeah. Sorry, she's really good. She's okay. She's okay. But Jozu, I bounced back I swung with my Biscuit Warrior, bounced him back so I could play on the next turn, so I could keep him. Huge. Huge move for me. But usually I like to bounce back a 1 cost if possible. But yeah, Jozu's really good. Removes a 6, so if they play a 6 on curve, you play this. It sets them super far behind, especially if they're not on Kid Leader. Sweet Pea, you play all the 4/6 vanillas. Ace, questionable. Like, if you hit it, it's great, but you're probably not. So he's a 5/6 if you need it. And then you can play this if you want. Any counter event, like if you don't have a lot, you can play the counter events. They're okay. Arbel, don't recommend. King, MVP. Charlotte Oven can actually be nasty, especially if you have that Scratchman of Poo or any meaningful minus. This card can actually put in a lot of work. The Katakuri at 6/7's pretty good. You're not really going to get to use his effect. But I did play Cracker because the Biscuit Warrior, if you can go Cracker into Biscuit Warrior, you're big ups. Smoothie, you want to play the vanillas again. Any card with removal, any card with like a lot of counter, that makes sense. You want to play those. Parasparrow, he has a trigger. He's like one of the only triggers you can play from life. Definitely add him in. Brulee's the blocker. We covered her. I didn't play Pudding. 8 Linlin. 9 Linlin, absolute monstrosity. I have nightmares about this card. But if you see this, you want to play it. Baron Tamago, the whole Tamago, the Count Nawatori package, all of that. You want to play all of it. Because you can KO this one on your own command, play one out early, and then you can just, if they answer any of them, you get to keep playing new ones. Like the Viscount, and then you get to go here. You probably only see one of each, but they're good. Cracker Soldier, Biscuit Warrior, phenomenal. Black Mari is a 2K. I don't think we really want to play any of these. You can play this if you have Candy Maiden. You can play this because we play Doctor. That is a 2 cost. And then if you're playing Katakuri, you can play this. It KOs 2 6s. A guy used his Scratchman of Poo, did a -1, hit me with that. Kaido, really good. If you hit this on curve, you get the trash a 7 cost. So if you hit this and they trash a card from their hand, if you hit this on curve, you can remove a huge threat and just set yourself huge ahead. Again, Bonney, like, giving you those opportunities. Queen, if I see all of these, or like this and Jack, I would definitely play Queen just for the search factor. Sasuke's a 2K. Jack's going to remove a 3, plus he gives you Cycle. So Cycle in and of itself is huge, especially if you're playing against Bonney. They're going to rest him anyways. Use this, get a Cycle, possibly KO blockers. Huge. Huge. And then you can play Jinbei. Jinbei KO's a 4 cost or less if your opponent has a character with 8 or more. The biggest thing is Kaido. I think him and Linlin, the big drop, are the best cards there. Scratch Minapu, again, blocker. Duval is a 2K. Who's Who does KO along with being a 2K, so you can use this for defense, offense. You want to play Hawkins. Again, those 7/9s, if you establish it on 7, really good. This event, you really don't want to play because it just returns 2 cost. Same thing here. The black events weren't really good. They wanted a lot of requirements to do something, or they did like very meaningless stuff. Caligara, honestly, I think this leader is worth playing if you see a bunch of these. We're going to go just a little bit faster, but I did play Opera just because, like, if for whatever reason, again, like your Bonney, you're relatively healthy, you can play this in KO possibly like a 4, which could be something. And you got these, you can play this. It could be good just because the trigger. Bonney, okay, let's take a second to talk about this. This is the best card. If you see this and you play Kid and you play this, when your opponent loses life, draw 2 cards and discard 1. So you replace it, but then you can do it. You can only do it once, but you're going to do it probably every turn with Kid. Probably going to hit a life. So you're just, and in CO, this card is phenomenal. You do not swing with this because this card is going to get you the things that you normally wouldn't see. It's going to get you to blockers. It's going to put you in such an advantage. Same with Nami. Nami doesn't give you advantage, but you can trash a card with trigger KO character with a 5 or less. 5 or less. So there's a lot of 5s. There's a lot of 4s. There are a lot of 6s, but on the build-up, if you hit this on curve KO 4, again, you're big ahead. So you absolutely, like, again, any SR, for the most part, it's probably playable to some degree. And then, of course, you got Mont Blanc. We love Mont Blanc. Both of them are pretty playable. If you see like this whole package, it's almost arguably worth to play Caligara. Wiper's a 2K. S Shark is busted. S Snake, okay. You get to stun something. Busted. Up to a 6 though. Up to a 6. So if you see that, you want to play it. S Hawk, insane. He's 7K during both turns. Swings for 8 if you're lower. Can't be KO'd by Slash. Not a lot of Slash characters, but a 4 for 7, essentially, especially if you're already behind. Insane. Insane. And then Burn Bazooka. This card's really good. It gives you a 4. It's a 2/4, so it's one of the few ones. And then you can add. You don't really super care about that. But you can put this to add, like, you know, get something and put, like, a 1K on top if you wanted to see what you had there. This card's busted. Take a life. This is really good in Bonney too. But also Rayleigh, if you see Rayleigh, you probably win if you play this, just because it sets you so far ahead. You're KOing probably 6. You're making something weaker. Now you have something to swing with. And then Linlin, if you're playing slow, if you're slow playing, you get to 10, and then you get to KO everything, and trash a life, gain a life. Probably just win. Especially if they've already, like, you know, again, like you're Bonney, you're keeping them slow, you do all your attacks, you play this, then you do all your attacks again, then you do this, you probably just win. So, yeah. As always, if you found this content of value, please hit that subscribe button. It helps me out a ton. And as always, thank you so much for watching.